Hey guys, welcome to the Smart Venture Podcast. In each episode, we're going to have conversations with some of the top investors, superstar founders, as well as well-known tech company executives in Silicon Valley. We'll have a coffee chat with them to learn their way of thinking and actionable tips on how they build or invest in a successful company. Before we start our show today, I want to make sure the listener, aka you, understand that everything a person say on the podcast only reflects hers or his own opinion, not the show or the company they work at. Our guest today is a co-founder and chief dating officer of Coffee Meets Bagel. She started the popular dating app with her two sisters. They turned down $30 million offer from Mark Cuban, which was the largest offer ever made on Shark Tank. Prior to creating the popular dating app, she was a VP of JP Morgan. Her name is Dawoon Kang. Welcome to the second part of the conversation with Dawoon. In the last episode, we talked about how Dawoon started Coffee Meets Bagel with her sisters and how she built up a great mental foundation for herself to lead a successful dating company. In this episode, we'll focus on learning more about how Dawoon helped grow Coffee Meets Bagel to one of the most popular dating app. Please enjoy. I think dating market in general is super competitive. What were things you did to beat the competition, scale the company as fast as possible?
I think being true to, at the end of the day, I always go back to your product experience and are you delivering on the promise that you're making? And how good are you at doing that versus the competitor really is the crux of everything.
What would you say were the biggest challenges you had to solve to grow this company?
It's when I think about challenges, it's interesting. You know, a lot of times are changed and things look different, but it always still boils down to the same thing, which is how do we dating is a very challenging problem. People have very high expectations as to what dating services should be delivering. And a lot of them are frustrated with online dating, including Coffee Meets Bagel. And so how do we always beat our customers' expectation and how do we create more success cases in a way that is true to us, true to Coffee Meets Bagel, and in a way that's differentiated? That's a question that we've always focused on from very, very beginning, and even years later now, something that we continue to hone in on.
You are the first chief dating officer on my show. Curious, what's a day-to-day like for a chief dating officer?
Lots of meetings. My job is to lead my team, guide my team. So it's mostly spent on meetings.
What are these meetings for? Would it be chatting with tons of customers? Would it be talking with dating gurus? Where do you majorly spend your time and energy on? How do you evaluate your product effectiveness as the chief dating officer? So there isn't a time that I like on a weekly basis, okay, I'm going to spend 1/3 of my time. It really, again, changes. My priority changes depending on what is being worked on and what is the plan that we have for that quarter, what is the priority for the quarter. So I think that's a little bit hard to say, but I would say like my job now is to enable my team to succeed, right? I don't work as an IC, individual contributor, and the most impactful thing that I can do is to enable my team to succeed, which is why most of my days are filled with meetings. So I would say like about 65% to 70% of my time is on meetings, like guiding the team, having one-on-ones. And then the rest of the time is what I designate as work time for myself to do things like talking to customers or recruiting or whatever is the highest priority for me that week. That's kind of how I split my time. When it comes to creating relevant matches, the team maybe needs someone to gather relevant data on candidates, assuming the team is made up by tons of data scientists. Curious on in terms of hiring, how many people on your team are data scientists and how many are focusing on creative things like marketing, design, customer service? If you don't feel comfortable talking about it, we could totally pass on this question.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to, I worry sometimes like of programming sets because again, everything just really is called like a company specific. And so there is no like rule that like, one of the things that I actually fell into trap to myself is just kind of following what seems like a best practice out there. Like, okay, I need to fundraise because everybody else is fundraising. It seems like the thing to do. I just don't want people to fall into that trap. And so, I could share the stats and splits and whatever. I really don't think that really means much for most. I think people have to just kind of make their own decision as to what is the appropriate split for them. So that's why I hesitate a little bit. But I would say, I think right off the bat, probably 60% of our team is engineering, which includes data science. And then maybe like 20-30% is maybe product, and the rest is split between marketing and CX.
I saw you and your sister did a TED Talk on the lens of people's profile influence the dating results. Those are some really interesting findings. To create those findings, is there any particular patterns that you are intentionally trying to validate through data, or are you normally just collecting data randomly and see if there's any pattern?
Well, we are always focused on our mission, which is to make love accessible to everyone. And in order for us to do that, okay, how do we send people on more great dates? How do we send people on ultimately like help them find a great relationship? So any kind of analysis that really speaks to that is where we focus our time on.
Speaking of helping people find love, many people are using multiple dating apps. How do you stand out from the competition? What do you consider as your strengths when you first start out? And what features or beliefs did you double down on to attract the consumer?
When we talk to our daters, CMB daters, there are two things that consistently come up as a differentiator for us versus other apps. One is quality versus quantity. So it's all about curation and curating the right people. You don't have to swipe through hundreds of profiles to actually be able to see somebody you're relevant. If you have to swipe, I'm making it up like 10,000 profiles on other dating apps to get to, 5 conversations. You only need to take a look at like 10, 20 people on CMB. So that is one main point. And swiping is tiring, right? And it feels like a lot of wasted time. People don't want to be spending 1 second per profile. It feels very superficial, and so not having to engage in the swiping behavior. We sometimes describe ourselves as the original anti-swiping. That is a huge plus for CMB daters. And the other is the fact that the community of CMB daters are people who are looking for a serious relationship. So if you are somebody who are looking for a serious relationship and you keep running into people who are looking for not serious, they're ghosting and whatever, it's frustrating. And 91% of CMB daters are somebody who are looking for a long-term relationship. And you can kind of tell by the way they engage with the app. And so those two will consistently come up as two differentiating points for CMB versus other dating apps.
You mentioned a good point on quality over quantity. From the past experiences and from what I've heard from friends, Coffee Meets Bagel does have pretty high quality matches. How do you maintain the quality of the candidates? Was it because of there are second degree friends, or do you guys have a certain filter for who gets on?
Well, that's where our data science team comes in, and our algorithm is the one that's curating the matches, and it is picking out people who they think that you would like and who would like you back, who you would think is high quality. So that's a large part of it, just doing all the sifting works for you versus you having to do it.
I'm always curious about the logic behind the algorithm. I remember I watched a documentary on another dating app that was not Coffee Meets Bagel. they were ranking people based on popularity. They would rate the attractiveness of a woman or men from 1 to 10, and they would only match the women with candidates that are lower attractiveness level, so she won't even see the options of men that are above her level. I was super shocked by the documentary. Curious your thoughts on these type of ranking system. Was it based on science? Is this normal? I also seen apps that are matching people based on common hobbies. Was it primarily scraping through someone's Facebook profile to find matched information? Curious, how does this algorithm work?
So this is our proprietary information. So
So sorry.
no, it's okay. So, but I mean, there's a ton that I can just say that there's a ton that goes in here. It's not never straightforward, like, oh, it's popularity or it's this. And it is a very, very complicated matter. And it also depends on the individual, right? For some people, I don't know, education matters more than anything else. For some people, it's not that. It's something completely different. So that needs to be taken into consideration. It's very nuanced, and there's a ton of experiment that goes on every day, and not everyone gets the same algorithm, is what I can say.
When it comes to creating these algorithms, assuming you have to directly communicate with engineers and data scientists, I remember your background is in finance. Some of our listeners may not be technical as well. Curious, how do you manage the technical team?
So I didn't manage engineers. That's why you need to hire the right people. We had a CTO who managed the engineers, and now we have a director of data who managed the data science team.
To hire these experts, for example, hiring a CTO, how do you measure their capabilities since they're the expert in a particular sector, which you may not be that familiar with?
Yeah, we leverage a lot of help. So again, going back to like hiring the right team, we had a bunch of friends and advisors that we interviewed, had them interview. So for example, like I had to hire, PR lead for our group. I'm not a PR person, right? And so I talked to a ton of PR professionals to get their advice on, hey, how should I interview? How should I measure their success? I have them interview also for me. Mm-hmm. So because they have, so those are some of the things that you can actually leverage to kind of mitigate your lack of direct experience. And actually, I mean, and speaking to that, managing people, I'm not managing my data science team, but my CTO is, and I have to manage him, right? And so I am at the very top level, and I do have to end up managing people where I don't really have technical expertise in. And that's why I think it's important to be able to like surround yourself with a lot of mentors and advisors who can actually give you guidance on what is the best way to manage people where you don't have direct experience. And there are a lot of best practices out there about how do you actually manage an executive team? How do you set up your executive team for success that you can also leverage?
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much for sharing this. The last question I wanted to ask before we jump into the fire round is, what's your best dating tip for someone who is looking to find someone or who is trying to improve their current relationship?
Yeah, I have so many dating tips that I want to share that comes to me, and it's mostly geared towards people who are looking for long-term relationship. One of the I'll pick one. So one of the most common questions that I get asked is, hey, how do I get liked on more? How do I actually get people to like me on my first day? How do I sound more interesting? I think it's very, very natural because we all want to be liked, and loved. And that is the whole point of dating, right? To find a partner that we can love and also be loved by and have this like deep sense of belonging and connection. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that a lot of us don't realize is that in order for you to be loved, you actually have to give love first. Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, the other person is having the same desire as you, which is they want to be liked and they want to be loved and whatnot, right? And if they feel loved by you, and I don't mean, when I say loved, I don't mean like you have to say I love you to them and be romantically interested in them, but just having a loving attitude towards whoever shows up. You don't have to be in love with them, but you could be loving to everyone who comes into your life, right? Every date that you go on, you can be, even if you don't go on a second date, you can be very, very loving to them. And when you show up with a loving attitude, they're going to feel that. They're going to feel really safe. And that's when they're going to actually open up to you. And things are going to kind of go in a virtual cycle. They're opening up to you, so you're going to open up. And this is, to me, the secret to unlocking how you can get people to build connection and intimacy. And it is to really just show up, regardless of who the date is. Doesn't matter, even if you are like, okay, in the first 5 seconds, I know that I'm not going to be interested in this person romantically. Be loving to them, right? Be present. Be listening. Ask them questions. Be considerate. Put away your phone. All the things that you can do to make them feel your love and affection. That is what's going to unlock their affection towards you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that I really emphasize a lot to daters.
You've been running a successful dating company for this long. What were some findings that surprised you after studying these human behaviors?
Oh yeah, there are tons of things that surprises me. One big thing is that it's very difficult for humans to predict who we're going to actually be attracted to. And there actually, if you look at the science, there really is no known predictor of attraction, no matter whatever dating apps and whatever who claims matchmaker. Like, it's really difficult for us to predict attraction. The CMB dating app, the way we actually present the algorithm is, we know who we think you're going to like the profile, right? And who's going to like your profile. But that still also doesn't mean that when you meet, you're going to be attracted to each other. Like, we make that possible. Like, the first step is to like and getting people to meet up, right? That is a very important step, but we cannot guarantee that you're actually going to be attracted to this person, right? And that's very difficult to tell, no matter what kind of ideas that you have about, I think I'm attracted to this person typically and whatever else. It's very difficult to tell if you're actually going to be attracted to somebody until you meet up and spend some time with them. There's a physical element, which kind of know right away, but there's also deeper, like a personal personality chemistry aspect to that, which you don't actually get to find out for a while. Mm-hmm. And so, I know there are kind of tons of rules about, like, okay, if I don't feel attracted to somebody in a first 5 seconds, that means that it's a no. That may be true a lot of times, but not necessarily. And I think we have to be. I've been wrong many times. Oh, I don't think I'm going to be attracted to this person, but like I show up and like, oh, actually, I was surprised. Those incidents happen a lot more than we think. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's one surprising thing that I encountered, which I think is also helpful to know in our dating life, because it's very easy for us to kind of dismiss certain people based on what we think we're attracted to. But again, like, you would be surprised when you actually meet up and kind of get to know them, what happens.
Absolutely. In the past 2 years, I spent some time worked at a VC firm in China, looked at some interesting dating companies there. One trend I found really interesting is, instead of building apps that help people to meet online, offline group dating services has been very popular. For example, a company would collect people's information over WeChat and putting people into groups to travel somewhere or host a certain type of events. So that's a popular trend. Do you see similar things happening in the US or the world in general?
Yeah, certainly. I think that's possible for the reasons what I said, which, sometimes it's hard to predict who's going to be attracted to who, and it's, when you're actually there physically meeting, you get a much better sense for who they are. I think that's very possible. We actually organized a lot of events previously, and I know we're not the first one to do that. Like a lot of other dating apps have done it for the very reason. And I think it has its also own limitations, right? It's very slow to execute. There's only so many events you're going to go, all that stuff. It's not as convenient and as dating apps. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's not widely adopted. But maybe there is a way to kind of get around those pain points. You kind of have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it would be so interesting to see what's next for Coffee Meets Bagel. You recently had a podcast just came out. What's the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, so we have a podcast/IG live show that we do it every bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. And it's called Save the Date. And the whole idea of it is to bring on dating experts who I can talk to so that we can explore what it takes to go on better dates and ultimately find CMB daters, ultimately help them be in a great relationship. And what inspired us to do this is kind of going back to our mission of, making love accessible to everyone. And how do we do that? Well, it's not just about giving people access to great candidates. We also want to be providing guidance and facilitation when it comes to helping them move down this, dating kind of journey. And there is an art and science to going on great dates. Like, so one of the tips I shared is like, hey, if you want to be loved, you have to be loving. And there's tons of science behind dating and relationship that if we can empower our daters with that knowledge, we believe that their dating life could be transformed. And so we want to give access to this kind of information to as many people as possible. So that was kind of the genesis of this podcast.
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear more of it. I listened to the episode with Jess McCann. It was really cool. We're at the last part of the interview. I have a little fire round for you. What's your favorite book?
There are many. I'll pick one of my favorite relationship book. And it's called, it's by an author called Sue Johnson, Dr. Sue Johnson, and it's called Hold Me Tight, 7 Conversations of a Lifetime. And really opened my eyes to things like what is love actually, and why do some relationship work and some relationship just doesn't. And I read this actually between my breakup and really helped me redefine the type of relationship that I wanted to look for in the next phase of my dating life.
Yeah. Who made the biggest impact in your career?
I would say my dad. My dad, who inspired me and my sisters to be an entrepreneur.
Which bring me to the next question. Who do you think is your dad's favorite daughter? I'm just kidding. So the next question is like, who would you invite to your dinner party?
Right now, again, I guess my mind just goes to dating and relationship space. I really admire Brené Brown, who is a researcher in the field of vulnerability and connection. And I think there's a ton of application to leadership as well as dating, parenting, teaching, just life in general. And I would love to be able to have a conversation with her about life.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point you just mentioned. Romantic relationship is just one part of the entire relationship category. On a day-to-day basis, you interact with so many people. Dating affects how you think about other relationships as well.
Oh, for sure. I, tell my team, anything that we learn about communication and how we work better within CMB applies to every parts of our lives, whether it's our family, romantic relationship, friends. And Actually, one of the reasons why I took landmark classes was to help me be a better leader, but it really had a tremendous impact on my dating life. Everything I learned from there.
This reminds me of one of your past podcast interviews. You talked about improving communications is really important. Curious, how did you improve communication skills back then?
This is also, communication is a science too, right? Art and science. Yeah. And so with just like any art and, art, like you just have to learn the theory of it and have to practice. So learning the theory is the first step. And then practicing is the second step. I would recommend a book called Nonviolent Communication, which has a very specific techniques and approach to how we communicate in life. So it is also is something that applies to anything in life, whether it's your work or family or whatever else. And so that is a good book to learn the theory of how we should be communicating. And then the second part is the more important part. After you have the insight, of course, you have to go and practice it.
Thank you. We'll totally check it out. The last question. When you are not at work, where can we find you? In other words, what's your hobby?
I do a ton of study and practice around yoga and meditation and personal growth.
Awesome. Dawoon, thank you so much for coming onto the show today.
Thank you so much, Grace. I hope that was helpful.
All right, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Smart Venture Podcast. If you like it, please leave us a quick review and hit subscribe so you don't miss any tips from the experts. If you want to receive our updates, please leave your email at smartventurepod.com. If you want to connect with me, all my socials are at Grace Gong GG. Besides LinkedIn, it's just Grace Gong. I'd love to connect with you and let me know your thought about the show. Now you can also listen to Smart Venture Podcast on YouTube. Go to smartventurepod.com, click the YouTube link on the top banner. Don't forget to hit subscribe and smash the like button. See you next time.